Hi, welcome to this episode of Founder's Journey. Today we have Kyle Geoghan
Yep.
on this episode. Thank you, Kyle. And I met Kyle host ITC Reflection on one of our podcasts, and we chat about all things ITC Vegas this year. And then Kyle shared a little bit about his own journey building company, his new company. And I thought about, you know what? Let's bring on this episode of Founder's Journey so we can capture and let him deep dive into everything that he's building right now. So Kyle, I am gonna flip the mic over to you. And then if you can, tell our audience how'd you get into insurance and what made you say, hey, I want to build my own company. So mic is yours.
Sure thing. Well, thanks for having me on, Jeff. And really, I was born into insurance. So, grandfather, father, uncles, and myself, all agents. And I always knew I was going to start a business. I'd say when and how this business got started, my co founder was really essential in it. And we were pretty early on to the generative AI trend. He handed me his phone in 2020 and said, I think this is the solution to the challenges you're having in insurance. And essentially, he was right. It took a few years to get there, but what we have now is really what we wanted to get to.
How was that journey like growing up in a family of all insurance?
I liked it. I always took to the kind of job that is an independent insurance agent because it's very consultative, and it was always hard for me to work for people. I'm never good with a boss, and I was always entrepreneurial, trying new things, and um, being able to talk to a business owner, understand their problems, and then give them advice on their risk, right? That's the essential part of being an independent agent. And so I loved that and was really innate because it was the conversation around the dinner table. And so a natural fit, the only non natural fit to the business was many of the small insurance agencies across the country are really behind with technology. And so that got frustrating after a while. And it drove me to the first wave of InsurTech.
What frustrated you?
Well, particularly the day that I applied to an InsurTech, I had, built the company website, built a bunch of web forms and a bunch of other ways to interact with customers digitally, and I was starting to get leads. And we had a switchboard-based phone system. And so one day I'm talking to my uncle and saying, "Hey, we need to move to voice over internet protocol because I can't track the leads. I don't know where they're coming from." And basically said, "No, it's too expensive." And then I had decided to move my desk about a week later. And the way to move your desk with a switchboard based phone system is to go to the basement, find the jack, cut all the different wires, and figure out how to match stripe to solid like half a dozen times. So it took half a day. And that day I said, I'm going to see what InsurTech can do with insurance. It was August of 2017. And then I ended up joining CoverWallet in September of 2017.
Man, you are really dating back, switching jacks in the basement.
I mean, it was crazy that it still was that way in 2017, but they had somebody in the front. If you call them and you want to go to X person's office, you just plug them in.
Yeah. So outside looking in, just an agent in the insurance industry, where do you think the biggest opportunity is for technology to change for agents?
Well, I think access to information and products is key. And I think that we're still on this journey where um, so much of the process includes kind of disjointed workflows, making sure somebody checks X box before this quote gets sent out. And so being able as an agent to understand all the programs that are available and then to actually get quotes and distribute them to the customers is one of the key places I think that technology really helps.
Thank you for all your support to our channel. Here is a quick word from our sponsor. Please click on the link below in the comment section to sign up for a demo with Track AI.
What if your insurance sales conversations could work harder for you? Meet Track, your AI-powered conversation intelligence partner. Track automatically captures and analyzes every customer interaction, providing instant call summaries, risk analysis, and AI-driven coaching insights. Say goodbye to manual note-taking and hello to more selling time. Track handles the admin work while you handle the revenue. Fully integrated with your favorite platforms. Plus, get custom AI analysis tailored to your unique business needs. Transform your sales team's performance with Track. Visit track.ai today.
Click the link in the description below to schedule a demo with Track today.
You could imagine my grandfather, who would actually have to mail applications and get them mailed back signed and then send them to the insurer. And then it's like, okay, fax is actually a really great improvement there, and email another great improvement on top of that. But all of it is still on the back end, often a manual process. And we're entering into a world where most products are not going to be that way. What do you think?
I just find it funny that we still see so many carrier requesting copy of verifications through fax machines. We know it's an email fax on the other end. We are sending them through email fax, but they're still requesting a fax.
Yeah, that is a ridiculous thing.
What else do you see opportunities in terms of like innovations?
Well, I do think that generative AI and large language models are another paradigm step. It's like a ladder up. So in the same way that the internet changes agencies, and now, the agents that would be really well known locally for going to Rotary clubs and chambers of commerce, now they've also got to have an internet presence. They've got to support the local community in different ways on Facebook or otherwise. I think the next step is going to be the business can extend itself out with large language models in a way where, the insurance agent's role is to be consultative, to know a lot about a customer's business or a customer's assets, and to know what products fit it well, and to make that match between the level of risk the customer wants to take and the options there are to transfer that risk. And so these new technologies allow you to kind of build your knowledge and perpetuate your knowledge, and add to it, right? So you can look for better products, you can add it to a program that you have of options for your customers. I think that's going to get better.
Stay on the theme here. What did you then say, hey, I want to launch a company now that I see all the problems? And where did you find the opportunities?
Yeah, well, I feel like I've been on basically the same quest, and it's how do I get the products I want customers to have accessible to them, easily able to understand them and ask questions about them. And so I was living in the East Village in New York, and I was working at this InsurTech, and essentially what we were doing was optimizing a web form for small businesses to buy insurance. And what you find, especially with a business that needs 5 lines, right? So if you ask for general liability, work comp, auto, cyber, E&O, now you're going through this process where you could answer 100 questions more if each of those products you're applying to more than one carrier, right? And you don't know what's right for you. You don't know how long it's going to take, and you often get confused by the questions. And so I found myself in this mire where it didn't matter how many times you change quote presentation. It didn't matter how many tooltips you add to an underwriting question. People are still frustrated with the process and they don't understand it. And so I'd go home at night and I'd tell my roommate, like, I did this today, didn't really move the needle. And one day he just said, well, if most people have similar questions and they get answers via phone or email, what if you give them an AI that you've trained to answer those questions exactly? And check out this thing I have developer access to. And so he handed me his phone, and I started talking with GPT. It's GPT-3 at the time in 2020. And it was just like a light bulb, like, wow, this really is a thing that could work. And at that point, the technology was not nearly where it needed to be for it to be production ready. We worked at night for about a year. It wasn't until April of 2021 where we essentially cobbled together a platform with open source systems. And we had a pretty good, it was basically like a CSR for an insurance agency. And we thought, okay, let's start the business. But at that point, the dream was to replace web forms. So what we actually went out to do was find a really simple insurance product and replace this web form by online experience with a conversational one. And we thought it would take 3 months, but it took a year and a half.
Yeah, your roommate handed you the phone, right? ChatGPT, GPT-3.
Yeah.
What does he do?
So he is from Australia, actually. And he came over probably 15 years ago to the US, and he specialized in bringing Series B and C stage companies into the cloud. So he got really good, especially at Amazon Web Services, worked in Silicon Valley for about a decade. And then when I was living with him in the East Village, he was working at a French video company, and he basically stood up with a team, a multi-billion per second transaction system for ad buying on videos, kind of like Google AdWords, but for ads before video shows.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you try to convince him to join your company?
Well, he really convinced me to take the leap because the company I was at was growing really quickly. We exited to Aon. Aon was kind of pushing us across the businesses, and it was really fun. But it was this old paradigm, right? It was like I knew we didn't have the real solution for the problem that I was trying to fix. And he really wanted to take it to the next level. And we were working at night. So it was like, okay, are we going to go full time? And there was just a point where we had enough technology and enough inertia together that it was clear that we should take the shot. And so that was April 21, where we said, we're doing it.
Nice. Can you just tell the audience about that Aon transaction with a Cover Wallet, just so they can have a backdrop story?
Yeah. So Cover Wallet, founded 2015. I joined 2017, probably about employee 50. And then it was 2020 when Aon decided to purchase the business. And we had built this solution, which was connected to about a dozen carriers via API to buy small business insurance products. But we also had a few partnerships, one of which was with the Aon Affinity business. And so we really transformed one of their vertically focused niche programs by taking what was, the typical disjointed brokerage process. You probably email a PDF. You might ask for a check for payment and binding. And we took that and made it a web form process. And it tripled the daily sales and halved the service costs. And so that was really the test case to prove the model, which made Aon want to take the business and spread it out across their operating units. And so that was a pretty wild ride. And, they're still going. I see them taking on new projects all the time within that Aon business. And it's cool to see the team and the technology spread there.
So going forward, you had this idea, your roommate convinced you.
Mm-hmm.
What was the fear? What were all the fear that was going through your head?
Fears. Well, I mean, we put our life savings into it to bootstrap, right? And it was definitely untested technology. And we had a lot of debates. I was pushing for, well, let's do something simple and shallow like lead capture for insurance agents. And I had already convinced him of the same dream that I've always had, which was like, let's actually solve the problem of information and product access. And so we really went for that. And the fear was like, it's not going to work and we're going to blow all our money. But, we worked well together. That first 9 months, we probably went through 10 generations of this AI platform. And at that stage, one of the problems was generative AI, large language models were not there. So we actually built on top of a open source, more traditional natural language understanding system. And we used large language models as like a get out of jail. If our small large language model doesn't work, or small language model doesn't work, then hit the large language model. And that's how we kind of started to increase our use of large language models, because as you train those systems, they get better and better. And so you can give them a little bit more leeway.
Okay, perfect. I want to go deeper. How'd you pick your team? Tell us about that. Like, what's the process of who do you think fits your vision?
Yeah. So, I like the kind of Paul Graham perspective on this. You can find your hardest working, smartest
Shout out to
friends.
Paul Graham. Let's send a shout out.
Yeah, really intelligent guy. And, that idea of like, you're all in, and anybody who's the first 10 people in a company's got to be all in too. And they've got to see the mission. They've got to be bought into it and ready to work toward it. So that's one piece. The other piece is find your really smart friends who are, willing to put in the work and show that they're a part of it. And then the other is, we found a lot of talented colleagues on technology platforms that we were using, like forums, like how do I do X or Y? You find someone there and they end up fitting well because they're looking for the same kind of technology, especially before ChatGPT. Before ChatGPT launched, getting somebody who understood a generative AI system and was interested in it was not easy.
Who was your first recruit?
First recruit. It was one of my closest friends from growing up. His name's George.
How did that conversation go? How was that conversation like?
He said something similar, like, I really want to be a part of this because I know you've been trying to do the same thing since you were a kid. And so it wasn't hard convincing him. And it was the kind of thing where we started growing. We had a lot of needs. I knew he was capable across different places. And so he joined up.
So that's recruiting people you don't know. I mean, you do know. What about recruiting people you don't know? Like, what was your first ad, and what did you guys hire?
Yeah, that was from the technology forums. And so an AI developer, a product designer, and a backend developer, all three of our best have come from the forums for the technologies that we were building on.
Nice. And then talk about the product rollout design.
Yeah, so we're especially now really trying to get toward a product-led growth strategy, and we're super close. And the nice thing about building AI agents is you get immediate feedback, right? Because people are talking to it and they either like it or they're frustrated with it or it doesn't do what they wanted them to do. And so we operated what we called conversation-driven design. And literally every day you look at every conversation and you change the AI to try to make the conversation work for that user's goal. And we've gotten really good at doing that. And we've now built these processes into our platform so that our customers who subscribe to the platform can do it for their own AI agents.
Yeah. You raising money? You raised money.
We've raised 3 million to date, just over that. The first money we raised was mostly from angel investors. It was $750,000 in early 2022. And then we've raised it all on safes. And when we've hit different waypoints at about $1 million a pop, just to keep proving out the model. And we're going to raise a big A round now, probably Q1 of next year.
Who's running your general counsel? Fractional general counsel? You guys outsourcing?
We got a really great law firm right around when we were raising our first round. So I got some lists from like the online, like Stripe Atlas or Gusto, a couple of these places where when you incorporate, they give you services. And so there was a list of attorneys that focus on technology companies. And I sent a pre-baked pitch to each one. Hey, here's this company. Here's what we're working on. We're looking for a great attorney. And we found one. They had been at, I can't recall the first law firm. They're Brown Rudnick is the law firm now.
That's pretty cool. And a month ago, InsurTech Insights picked up your raise, spearheaded by Mark. So Parker Beauchamp over at Mark, he believed in you guys. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know the process a founder go through pitching, right? So
yeah,
I'm sure there's a story there.
No doubt about it. I come from a family of insurance agents on Long Island. I don't have the, private equity venture capital network that some do. And so I started with my network, but then I built out. I did grow a bit of a network in CoverWallet, so that was helpful. But it really is a numbers game, and it's be the most outward aggressive person you can in terms of trying to get in front of people and tell them what you're doing and what your dream is. That really worked. And I found I've always had the most success with insurance focused investors. And so we've got a couple of insurance carrier owners, a bunch of insurance brokerage and InsurTech angels. And so people that regularly invest, they put the first checks in, typically like, $10,000 to $35,000. And then Parker came in after that in our second round and our third round. And him and I just really, we see eye to eye on many things because he grew up in a family agency. He built it to be really successful and exited. And he sees the next generation of insurance technology, pretty clearly, in my opinion.
What Park has done, coming from exits of his own family in the insurance industry to now building the InsurTech fund focused on insurance innovators. I wish we see more of those stories. There's so many people in our industry, we know exit for 7-8 figures, amazing achievement, but they will go outside of the investment post-exit world into real estate, hedge fund, whatever. So many of those people should be coming back and investing back into the community.
I agree. They're the best suited to determine who's going to win as well.
So how many people do you think you pitched?
At least 100 the first round. And it's been less each other round. And they were really more like, okay, let's bring a little bit in to get to the next stage. I will say that I wanted to raise a much bigger round last year. And I did the typical mistake of a startup, especially in insurance, which was I've got all these really interested mega incumbent customers, right? And I'm going to sign one of them for a big paycheck. And I put all my eggs in that basket. And when the time came for them to sign, they were like, oh, no, it's going to be another 3 months or another 6 months. And so I actually had to go back to the drawing board and start to work with customers at a much smaller level, prove the value of our SaaS platform in this newest stage of the business where we offer the platform to insurance businesses.
So you were just out there whale chasing.
Well, what happened was, we had been yelling into the void for years. Generative AI is the future. Chatbots really have a place to play, and they're going to replace web forms. And most people would say, I hate chatbots. And then ChatGPT launches and everything changes. And the first thing that I did was call the leaders at the insurance carriers that I worked with at CoverWallet and say, hey, we've got this system. I know it's going to replace your web form based system over time. Are you interested? And necessarily with the APIs, especially 5 years, InsurTech 1, they were the bigger insurance companies. And so that was where I had the network. And one of the largest, we won't name them, but I worked with this person very, very closely for years with the API. We really ignited growth with the web form based distribution. And so now I'm talking with her and I'm saying, hey, is this something you'd be interested in? And her answer is yes. I've been trying to do this conversational insurance distribution for years. If you can do this, I'm a customer. And so then we went through 12 months where I met all of her different business unit leaders. We nailed down 6 different use cases. And it was a year to the day I sent this proposal. And it was, $250,000 to sign, and would have been 500 if you did every use case. And I was sure that she was going to sign some version of the contract. And 7 days later, she calls me and says, well, I got the job of a lifetime. I'm leaving. And so
Wow.
she's like, don't worry, my deputy's going to help, blah, blah, blah. But, then you work with the deputy and the deputy leaves 45 days later. And so that was the experience. And it's not unique. I've talked to many founders now who have a similar experience.
It is truly a roller coaster ride.
Yes.
What about the product that you guys landed on? You guys landed on event insurance product to roll out the first phase?
Yes. So year one, the idea at that point was just to get something that was really simple, where it was a carrier that wasn't going to be super stringent with the customer experience and kind of all the ways that you need to test and learn, and that it wasn't going to cost a ton of money to get your product in front of customers. And so shout out to Jeff May and the personal lines team at Markel. That's a really innovative insurer. And he said, yes, we can test this. He did put up the typical rails that you need to have to make sure that you're distributing coverage correctly. But the wedding and event insurance market is great because it's representative of so many products on the long tail, especially in the US, where it's not very much money. The underwriting's pretty specific, and the customers have a need and don't understand the product. And so it was really a good fit for, can we educate somebody who doesn't know about this product? Can we get in front of enough people to train the models? And can we prove this next version of digital insurance experiences? And, frankly, our goal was to work on this for 3 months and then move to renters and then move to pet insurance and travel and have a brokerage that millennials would go to and talk to via AI agent to understand and buy their products. But it took so long to train the one model and the one product that the business changed. And it changed for the better, because what was actually a big unlock for us was, instead of thinking about replacing web forms with AI agents, we thought about supporting AI agents with humans. And so we put a human in the loop so that if you're talking with an AI agent at any point, you can enter into a live chat with a human. And when we did that, we had all the data necessary to train the model in a more effective way. And once we found that system, we also found a system that was more broadly applicable in insurance, right? It's not just selling insurance products, it's servicing them. It's answering questions across the value chain for all your different distribution partners. And so that's the platform we have now, much broader.
I love it. So stay on the event insurance, right? Who should be going on your website as a consumer to buy their event insurance? What type of people? What should B2C model look like?
Yeah, so we've just
walk me through like the insurance journey from here to here.
Yeah. So when we started, we were just paying for Google Ads just to get people in and train the system. And the first place we found success was affinity relationships with event venues that often require insurance. And now we've got hundreds of partnerships across the event space with event planners, with platforms. It's really a multi-channel distribution strategy. Wherever events and weddings are a thing, especially kind of bigger events or higher risk events, there's an insurance opportunity. And so you can embed a product there. And that's where we found a lot of success. And we found it by taking the AI agent and personalizing the experience for each of those channels, right? So each of those venues that requires or recommends, we're presetting the underwriting data, we're presetting their requirements or their coverage recommendation. And each customer of theirs goes to this dedicated page and has a personalized experience. And so that's been really successful. And we've forked that off now. It's a brand called Event Guard. And so that's kind of its own business unit within Indemn. And it's really representative of how the platform can work for all these different programmatic products that we're offering now in a SaaS format.
Well, I'm trying to guess your rollouts and your offerings. Do you guys have your own insurance premium book that's on DTC? And then also have your SaaS offering and white label solution to insurance agents, brokers, and MGAs? Mm-hmm. And is there another rollout of your own MGA line overseeing your insurance premiums?
So we do have an agency business, this Event Guard business that distributes products through multiple channels. We even have agents who embed our wedding and event insurance AI agent on their own websites and sell through that. So that's kind of one thing on its side. It does grow. You know, we've got one individual who leads that business unit and more partnerships, more customers every month. But it's really not our growth engine, right? Our growth engine now is this software as a service platform, because that is representative of literally hundreds of products, probably thousands if you look globally, but hundreds in the US, where this new version of a customer and insurance agent experience should exist. And so we've got, you know, a half dozen of these different products now, like a personal cyber, even a small business cyber that we're working on, and they're at different levels of maturity. But the ultimate goal is to provide a similar system. And if you think about it, you want a language model around an insurance program to enable access to all the information. How long does this take? What's covered? What are the options, right? Then you want to be able to generate a quote. So what are the key data points you need to send via API or to your rates and rules table to come back with a price, right? Those are the first two top of funnel things you do. And then you start the underwriting process. And so depending on how complex the product is, you might have to make an AI agent for each step in that funnel. You often do. So quote generation alone is often its own AI agent. And that's how we're working now. We work across the value chain, and we often actually start with just, we call it an FAQ agent, but literally you put it somewhere in the value chain and you answer commonly asked questions. And so, you know, we've got one that embeds in a brokerage portal. So it's only answering questions for appointed agents. But in the same sense, we've got an engagement tool for a direct business where if they've got a pretty complex web form and they're not yet ready to replace the whole thing, we can embed an AI agent right at the point of quote presentation. So if in this case, that customer's goal was to increase the buy online experience for individuals who get to quote presentation. And so we can take a set of the most frequently asked questions, stick buttons right under the quote, they click it, it opens the agents up, and they start a conversation.
So multiple questions. What are your success rate between when a click starts on your website on the landing page to when it gets finished to a quote? So that's first question. Second question is, what percentage of quote actually become binded business?
Yeah, so for the event business, that's the one where we've got tons of data. We are at 24% eyeballs on the screen to full purchase. And this is, oh, go ahead.
24% you guys are closing?
Yes, and 95% of that is fully AI agent driven. So 5% includes a human in the loop. Now this is the most mature AI model we have. You know, we've been building it since the start of the company, and it's a very simple product. The average premium has climbed through AI agent strategies, but it's only $275 or so. But that is happening. And so it's one person with hundreds of partners running this business, and it's growing every day. And so that's really interesting. So it's about a 20-step process all through and through. And so if you don't ask any questions, and most customers, they'll break up the experience with questions, right? And so you can imagine at the top of the funnel, somebody who has this requirement or not, they end up on the AI agent page and they ask like, well, why do I need this? How long does it take? Should I really use you? And so you've got these haven't earned the lead questions that come first. And then what we do is we get very quickly to the quote indication so they know the price and the product options. And as soon as you give a quote indication, that's where you get objections. Well, is it covered if this happens? I actually need this limit. And so we've gotten really good at responses to objections. And then the place where you find the most drop off is underwriting, right? Because it's often longer, it's sometimes confusing. And so we've got these trees that we've seen people go through that really improve the form completion to payment. One example is on the wedding and event product, there's a new trend, especially in the South, where donkeys offer, they're basically bartenders, right? They walk around a party and deliver drinks. And so there's a subset of customers who have this conversation about whether the donkeys are covered or not.
Well, I have
in our
never
underwriting.
heard of that. So
Yeah.
I know we're gonna go off the recording deep end here, but can you talk about these donkeys? Like what?
Yeah, they put like a saddle on them with cup holders, and the bartender makes the drinks, puts it on the donkey, and pushes it out to the party.
What part is this?
It's popular in Texas and the Carolinas.
What kind of parties?
Weddings and all kinds of other private events.
I feel like I'm about to search on TikTok and YouTube,
You'll find it.
bunch of shorts, a bunch of donkeys. Like just imagine those search keywords. Okay. Sorry, Kyle. I had to get off on that one. Let's go back.
No worries.
Let's go back.
Well, we didn't finish the conversion. So eyeballs on the screen, it's 24%. And then one of the key measurements is from lead to purchase. And so 20-step process, we ask for name and email at about step 10. And 89% of the people who share their name and email are buying. And so, those are the two big metrics that we track, and we've really cranked them up and up and up over the years. And it's really the showcase for what's coming and what we can do for an MGA or an insurer.
What percentage of eyeball starts on desktop versus mobile?
It's about half and half now. It used to be more desktop.
How fast is that trend changing?
Probably the last year, it's changed like 15% in
Okay.
favor of mobile.
And when they buy, what payment system are you guys taking and who are you using to take in the payment system?
So we use Stripe.
Okay. I have a hate and love relationship with Stripe. Not Apple Payment or Android payment systems?
Well, you can use Apple Pay through Stripe. We built the widget so that we didn't have to worry too much about the PCI compliance. And basically, in a similar way, the way our SaaS platform works now, we have a REST API for AI agents. And so for a quote, you build your REST API if you have your own API, and you say, I need these data points. And once they're collected, send them to this endpoint. And that's your quote API endpoint. And so once you hit that, you come back with the price and the coverage details, and we present that to the customer. In the same way, we present the Stripe widget in that AI agent to the customer. And we're working on a couple of payment systems like carrier specific where we can take payment for them as well. So I think we're going to be in a world where we'll have multiple options. But I agree, it's love hate with Stripe. They actually, we worked on it for 6 months in the first round of our platform in dev, and then we wanted to go live. And the day we went live, they said, oh no, we don't do insurance. And so, that was at our bootstrap phase, and we were about to pay for advertising. We really didn't have much more money left to test the system. And it took another month and a half of back channeling and calling and emailing before I got Stripe to say, okay, we'll let you guys use it.
What made you guys choose Markel as your partner to build this first innovation phase out?
Yeah, so, we were looking at a list of products that would be applicable to millennials and relatively simple to test and build this buy online experience for, and carriers that we saw eye to eye on. And this product and the team there at Markel really just checked all the boxes for, when you don't, this back to your fears, it's like, am I picking the wrong product? And how fast and how long should we wait before we make a decision? And, because personal auto was the one everyone was like, well, why don't you do that? And it's because you don't get as many at bats with personal auto. It's very competitive and it's very expensive to get eyeballs on the screen and to get some share of a customer's thoughts. And frankly, most customers, at least in the place where we'd be playing, are looking for price and price only, right? And with something like wedding and event or many other niche products like a professional lines product, there's just a lot of questions. So you can deliver more value just by providing immediate access to questions. And I'd say that's always where I start with, like, what value do we provide? Well, we've got a lot of use cases. We provide a lot of value across the sales and service chain. But the big thing that is over now is somebody calling customer service, waiting for 10 minutes, getting on the phone with a service person and asking the same question that 20 other people did, right? With generative AI now, that question's immediately accessible. You can ask it in web chat, you can ask it in email, you can call and ask. A generative AI system can answer that question. And so that's going to be, gone from our experience soon everywhere.
What are some of the future coming product you guys going to offer?
So anything programmatic is in the wheelhouse. The simpler, the better, really. So, like, to go from the wedding and event product, which is 95% contained in AI, to a homeowners, I don't think homeowners is going to get anywhere near 80% containment in the foreseeable future. Like, the smaller stuff could, but probably our AI agents in this instance are acting more on the CSR, on the assistant side. Well, I got the data from the customer. I answered some basic questions, but I pushed it to the agent because they're ready to talk about their coverage options and what to worry about. And so it is right now very human in the loop. It's very much build an assistant for parts of the value chain or each part of the value chain. I think the future is going to have orchestration, or I know the future will have orchestration between AI agents and more autonomous systems, right? So we'll kind of climb that road as it proves itself.
I mean, you have like hit every single one of my questions with the answer. It's pretty spot on. Like, so that just tells me like you've been just sitting here thinking about every single fail point, success point over and over again.
Well, we've run into them, right? We've been building and iterating, and that's the cool thing about AI agents is it's an iterative process where you get immediate feedback. And so, we know when these agents hallucinate. And I think one of the key ways to succeed building these systems is to just start simple, right? Like, reduce the scope, put high rails on your agent, tell it it's only able to answer questions here for this particular business unit. And then you can essentially promote it, right? Like, if it does well there, give it a little bit more leeway or connect it to the next step with a different agent. And so that's one piece. The other piece is I've got a lot of scars from, InsurTech Wave 1.0, where there's really very little respect for insurance expertise, for how the markets work, for the regulatory frameworks. And so I know them and I'm not trying to break them, right? Sometimes it depends on what they are, but by and large, insurance products are complex contracts for a reason, and they do a pretty good job. There's plenty of places for innovation, right? But it's not like the whole industry needs to be turned upside down, in my opinion. What do you think?
Oh, I'm agreeing with you. Like, yeah, there was a lot of light bulbs going off in my head while you're going through your explanation. I have recorded quite a few Founders Journey episode, and I think I have asked you the most in-depth questions versus a lot of it's a little bit softball side and then just laying up. I really appreciate you engaging with me on this episode, but I'm really curious to have you come back maybe 6 months from now and give us like another sneak peek inside the journey of Indemn AI and then what you guys are building and new contracts and enterprise and partnership you guys are bringing on. So anyone you want to give shout out to before we let you go?
Give a shout out to, well, there's plenty of people. The InsurTech New York guys are great supporters of the business. Parker is really a great supporter. My co-founder, that's probably a good place to start there.
That's great. Well, Kyle, thank you very much for coming on the podcast, and I wish you continued success on your launch of your company.
Thanks, Jeff. Great talking with you.